The garage was silent except for the slow ticking of cooling metal and the whisper of morning wind sliding through the cracked wooden door. Sunlight spilled across the dusty floor in long golden bands, catching the faded paint of an old black motorcycle that had seen better days. Thomas wiped his hands on a rag, breathing in the familiar scent of oil and memories he had tried for years to bury. He wasn't expecting anything extraordinary that morning, just another buyer responding to his listing for the beat-up bike he had finally convinced himself to sell. But life has a way of cracking open old scars when you least expect it. And in that moment, as a heavy engine rumbled outside and a figure stepped into the doorway, Thomas felt his entire world stall like an engine that had run for too long without fuel. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, or the possibility of redemption, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The man who walked in wore a leather vest, his arms carved with deep tattoos that told stories of battles fought on the road. He carried the kind of presence that filled a room intimidating, solid, unshaken. But when his eyes landed on Thomas, something in him shattered. The biker froze, not in fear, but in disbelief, as if he had just stumbled upon a ghost masked in grease-stained clothes. He stepped closer, breathing harder, his gloved fingers trembling around the helmet in his hand. And Thomas, who had lived 55 hard years and thought he had felt every emotion a man could feel, suddenly felt a cold wave of recognition he wished he could deny. The biker's jaw tightened, his eyes glistening in the dim light. He stared at Thomas's face, at the lines of age and sorrow, and the word barely made it out of his mouth as a whisper, "Boss, is that you?" A lifetime seemed to collapse into the dusty silence between them. Thomas had once been someone else, someone feared, respected, and burdened by the reputation he carried across highways and dark nights. He had been president of a motorcycle chapter that no longer existed, a brotherhood swallowed by violence and bad decisions. But 20 years ago, after the death of his closest friend in a street conflict he blamed himself for, Thomas had walked away. No goodbye, no trace, just a man trying to outrun his own guilt. He had spent 2 decades hiding behind normalness. Small jobs, small towns, and a small garage where the world couldn't reach him. But the world had found him again through this one man standing before him, eyes wide and heart cracked open. The biker, now in his late 30s, looked like life had carved rough edges into him. His vest carried the emblem of a brotherhood Thomas once knew too well: fierce loyalty, dangerous roads, and the kind of love that hurt more than it healed. Seeing him took Thomas back to the days when this man was just a young recruit, a kid hungry for belonging, someone Thomas had tried to steer away from trouble even as he himself drowned in it. The kid had idolized him, followed him everywhere, clung to his words like scripture. Thomas had always wondered what became of him after he disappeared. And now here he stood, bigger, harder, older, carrying a pain Thomas instantly recognized. Thomas stepped aside and let him in. The biker walked slowly around the motorcycle, his fingers brushing its handlebars, as though touching an old photograph. He swallowed hard, and Thomas could see the years of unanswered questions swirling in his eyes. The boy he once knew had become a man, but beneath the tattoos, the scars, and the armor, the same wounded loyalty lingered. Thomas felt something heavy twist inside him, regret that never found closure. The biker began to breathe faster, like the memories were suffocating him. His shoulders shook slightly, betraying the emotion he was trying to hide. Thomas felt a sting behind his own eyes. He never meant to hurt anyone when he disappeared. He had only wanted to stop hurting himself. But walking away hadn't erased the past. It only left others to carry the shadow of his choices. The silence between them felt thick, packed with things neither man had the courage to confess. The weight of 2 decades pressed against the walls of the garage. As the sun rose higher, its warmth softened the sharp edges of the moment. The biker sighed, a long, tired breath that sounded like it carried 20 years of unanswered pain. Thomas gently placed a hand on the bike's tank, one of the few things he had left from his old chapter. He had kept it not because he wanted to remember his past, but because he had never learned how to let it go. Now the bike had become the bridge between 2 broken souls trying to piece together what they had lost. The biker finally stepped closer, looking at Thomas with a fragile mixture of anger, respect, and relief. He seemed to be searching for the right words, but in the end, all he could do was stand there, raw, exposed, and human. And Thomas, for the first time in years, felt the walls inside him crumble. He realized that he had spent half his life running away from the people who still saw goodness in him, even when he didn't see it himself. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to face the past, not with fear, but with the hope of rebuilding something. Not the club, not the reputation, but the connection that had survived the storms of years. Thomas reached for the old bike key, pressing it into the biker's gloved hand. It wasn't just a key. It was forgiveness, acknowledgement, and a silent apology wrapped into one. The biker stared at it with a trembling breath, understanding the gesture more deeply than words could ever express. For a moment, both men stood there, two lives intertwined by fate, loss, and unexpected redemption. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like the video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who believes in forgiveness, and subscribe for more soulful stories. Before we end, please comment below, what would you have done if you were in Thomas's place? And so, in the warm glow of the morning sun, a broken past found a fragile new beginning. The old motorcycle wasn't just steel and rubber, it was a witness to pain, loyalty, and the quiet power of second chances. And as Thomas watched the biker embrace the memory of the man he once followed, he felt something return to his chest, something he thought he had lost forever: hope.